Welcome to another of Mrs. C's maths lessons. Right, hopefully you did okay with yesterday's calculating and interpreting the mean questions. Here are the answers. This is straightforward. You add up the data and then you divide it by the number of groups in that set of data, okay? So the mean was 3 buses, okay? Number 1B was maximum temperatures. You had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You added them up, divided by 7 to get your mean temperature of 17 degrees. Hopefully you spotted the deliberate mistake on 2A, because I said find the total number of car journeys, but the car journeys was there. It was a total number of miles, okay? So in order to do that, you needed to times the two together to interpret the mean. Okay, because you had the mean distance already, so it's opposite operation, and your answer was 540. And then find the number of train journeys. You had the total number of passengers and the mean number of passengers, okay? So you need to divide one into the other, because that's again interpreting the mean to get the number of journeys. So 180 into 720 4 times. Hopefully you did okay. Right, here we go again. Today we are going to go on to looking at ratio. So the learning intention, we are intending to learn how to simplify ratios today. So I'm just going to explain what a ratio is, and then we'll learn how to simplify it, and I'll set some questions for you to do and give you the answers tomorrow. Right, we're going to compare fractions to ratios because I think that is a good way of understanding what they are about. So I have drawn a lovely cake here, and this is a fraction. We're going to look at fractions here. So fractions compare the part to the whole, okay? So this is my whole cake. So what is a fraction of pieces I've eaten? If this is the eaten pieces, the white ones. Let's look at how many there are in the whole, and then we can write the fraction. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The cake is cut into eighths. Agreed? How many are eaten? 3 out of the 8. So we write that as 3 over 8. And we're comparing the 3 that are eaten to the whole, which was 8 when the cake was first cut. Okay? So that's what fractions do. Ratios are similar but different, because this is exactly the same bit of data we're going to use and put it as a ratio. Ratios compare part to part, okay? So the ratio for this cake here, for this bit of data here, would be 3 eaten compared to 5 not eaten. So for every 3 that are eaten, 5 are not eaten. So you would write that the ratio would be 3 and then a colon to 5. That is the ratio way, comparing part to part, of showing this cake, okay? So fractions compare parts to whole, and ratios compare part to part, okay? What I'd like you to do now is pause the video, write your learning intention, and then write what a fraction is, and then write what a ratio is. You can use this as an example, okay, to start for you to understand what the ratio is looking at. Okay, so pause the video now. So have you got that? Ratios compare part to part. 3 eaten to 5 uneaten, compared to fractions, which compare the 3 eaten to what was there in the beginning out of the whole, 3 out of the 8. Okay? Right, let's look at another one. Slightly the same but slightly different. 7 footballers in a team. Okay, how many footballers are there in a team? There's always 11, isn't there? 11 players. 7 footballers in the team are right-footed and 4 are left-footed. Okay, so to write that as a fraction, it would be out of the whole. The whole is 11. So 7 out of the 11 players. 7 out of the 11. That is your fraction of right-footed So the fraction of 11-footed, the fraction of left-footed are 4. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 4 remaining. So 4 out, oops, I'll just redo that. 4 out of the 11 are left-footed, therefore. So we are comparing the amount to the whole amount in the team. If we go to the ratio, what are we going to do? What are we doing? We're comparing part to part. So for every 7 right-footed players, there are 4 left-footed players. Can you write it as a ratio? For every 7, you're comparing the part which is 7 to the part which is 4. Always write it the way that it comes, even if the bigger number is first, okay? So we're saying it right ratio of right-footed to left-footed. So we would write 7 right-footed, colon, to 4. For every 7 right-footed, there are 4 left-footed. Get it? Right, I am going to rub off and write a couple of questions that I'm going to go through with you. Then we will set some questions for you to do for tomorrow. Here we are back again. Right, so here is another question. James gets 15 right and 5 wrong in a test that he's doing, okay? And what we want to write, because we're comparing part to part when we're looking at ratios. So, how many right to how many wrong? Easy. So, let's just write it. 15 right to colon 5 wrong, okay? Just as a little bit of an aside, so we're keeping in mind how it relates to fractions. What is the total number of questions in the test? Total number of parts, 15 add 5 is, write it there. So what would be the fraction that he got right out of the whole amount? 15 out of 20. So that is the fraction, but the ratio, the part to part comparing, is 15 right for 5 wrong. Is it though? Is that the simplest way of writing that ratio? Or can we make it smaller so it's easier to kind of see and understand? This, always when I'm looking at ratios like this, I think of how you would simplify a fraction. It is absolutely the same rule. How would you simplify a fraction? You always divide the same number into the denominator as you do to the numerator. Yeah, remember? How many times has Mrs. Cumberland said to you, whatever you do to the top, you do to the bottom. Same with simplifying ratios. Easy as pie. So, what goes into something that ends in a 5? What is a factor of that? 5, of course. So, we're simplifying that by dividing 5 into it. So, 5s into 5 go 1. So if you've divided that by 5, you divide that by 5. 5s into 15 go. Much easier to see. So for every 3 that James is getting right, he's getting 1 wrong. And that is the ratio. Okay, have you got it? Let's have a look at this next one. Right, it's break time at school. Can you remember that? 6 teachers have got tea. They've got a cup of tea. To 14 with a cup of coffee, okay? So what is the ratio of teachers with coffee to tea in the lowest terms? A couple of things that I just want to mention about this, because I'm going to set some work in a minute, which is exactly the same questions sort of type, if you like. It says, ratio of teachers with tea to coffee. You must always write it, so whatever comes first, you show that number first. So you write down the tea number first, 2, which is the colon, to the coffee. And the lowest terms means you must simplify it just how you would simplify a fraction. Whatever you do to one side, you do to the other. So you're taking it down and the comparison is staying the same. Right, so ratio of tea to coffee, we've got, well, you do it. 6 to... Done it? 6 to 14, hopefully you got that. Right, you can see easily they are both even numbers, so you're going to be able to divide that by 2, of course. So let's half that, and let's half that. So for every 3 teachers having tea, there are 7 having coffee. Surprising but true. Right, I'm going to come back in. Oh no, I'm not. Let's have a look at these very quickly. How would you simplify those? Let's just see whether we can get that right before I set you some work so you're feeling confident about what you've got to do. So these are ratios. For every 2, there's 8 of something. Okay, how would you simplify that? What goes into both of those? 2, of course. So that in the lowest terms would be 1 to 4. 21 to 6, what goes into that? 3, yeah. 3's into 21 go 7 times, and 3's into 6 go 2 times 7 to 2. And how about this one? What goes into 25 and to 40? It ends in a 5 and a 0. 5 is the obvious choice. 5 times 5's into 25, 5's into 40, 8. 5 to 8. Okay? Easy as pie. Back in a moment with some questions for you to do for tomorrow. Right, okay, so here is the work. We will do a close-up on it, so you can just freeze it so you can copy the questions. I have done 12 questions because I think they're quite straightforward compared to some of the work that we've done. These are very straightforward. Remember, they each need to be shown in their lowest terms. Whatever you do to one side, you do to the other. And you write the ratio as it's written, so doctors to nurses or adults to juniors. One last point, this question 5, there are 3 parts. There are children who walk, children who cycle, and children who come by car. So with a ratio, as we said right at the beginning, you're comparing part to part to part. So that would be just written like this in 3 parts. The walkers compared to the cyclists compared to the people who travel by car, okay? These ones at the bottom, you're just simplifying into the lowest terms. When you have got 3, you have to do the same to that, as to that, as to that. So you divide each number by the same number. So what is a factor of 5? That's a factor of 25. That's a factor of 20. Whatever you do to this one, you do to this one, and you do to that one. Okay? I think you'll get it. Brilliant. See you tomorrow with the answers. Let's try and get 100%. Remember, like, turn on post notifications, and subscribe.